Hi,
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, Sean. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Firstly, thank you very much for accepting my invitation and accepting to be on my show.
Yeah, absolutely. I watched a few of the different episodes, and it definitely looks like you've had a lot of interesting conversations. So I'm happy to be on.
I thought to tell about you and the work that you are doing to my audience so that they can learn from you and can know what you're doing.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm happy to answer any questions you have or anything. So
So before that, can you please introduce yourself?
yeah, absolutely. So my name is Sean Bulger. I'm a consulting engineer for a large Microsoft partner. I work in the Microsoft, or I'm sorry, in the enterprise mobility space, particularly with Microsoft Endpoint Manager, and then the rest of the enterprise mobility and security suite as well.
You're from?
I am from
I think we lost. Yeah, we
oh,
connected. Yeah.
did you get my last answer?
No.
Oh, okay. So I said I'm actually from Southeast Michigan, in the United States.
So awesome. So can you tell more about you as a consulting engineer?
Yeah. So typically, what my job looks like is I'll be given a client, and then with that client, I'll work with them for anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a week over the course of 8 to 10 weeks to help them deploy and pilot new solutions like Microsoft Intune, or set up, say, a cloud management gateway with Configuration Manager. A lot of times, it's just taking a look at what's going on in their environment and helping them to address the different issues they see on a day-to-day basis.
So you're doing this since.
So I've only been a consulting engineer for about actually 11 months now. I started last March. Before that, I was in a few different companies. So I actually got back into IT in 2014. Prior to that, I was a paramedic. So I've been working in this specific field for about the last 7 years. So I've been working primarily with Intune and Configuration Manager in that time.
So your education background.
So I actually have what I like to call the world's most useless associate's degree. I have an associate's degree from a small college that actually was going bankrupt. I looked at the list of credits I had, so it was a small private college. And the only degree I could get at that point in time was an associate's degree in Christian thought, which, um, if you know me, you know that really doesn't fit me very well. Um, so my degree has absolutely nothing to do with what I do now. Um, After that, like I said, I became a paramedic, so I had to go through school for that. And then when I decided to move down to the Metro Detroit area, um, I decided I didn't want to work as a paramedic anymore. I had a little bit of previous experience doing help desk, so I started looking for different jobs in IT. I found a support job that would hire me at a large accounting firm. Um, and kind of from there, the rest is history. I was able to move up pretty quickly, find a technology I really enjoyed working with, and then grow my skills from there.
So 14 years. So what you learned in IT?
So I got back into IT in 2014, so about 8 years. Um, what have I learned? I have learned a lot. Obviously, there's a lot with technology that I've learned. The time that I've spent working with Endpoint Manager, understanding how to work with Windows, how to work with different devices, whether it be mobile devices, whether it be laptops, desktops, servers. I've worked in all of the different areas of system administration, but I would say the real things that I've learned and been able to apply are probably a lot more about the soft skills. So how to work with different people, how to communicate with people. Um, I've learned a lot of the different ways that technology can be uh, valuable to us beyond just being a tool where we can accomplish work. Um, you know, I I like to look a lot at uh, the work and a lot of things like Satya Nadella from Microsoft has said. and he talks a lot about democratizing technology. So a lot of what I've learned in the last 8 years or so has been about how we can take technology and really use it to uh, help just create a better world and a world that is uh, more equitable for everybody. And that's a lot of what I have really learned. I think you've probably talked to a lot of people who will tell you that they've learned a lot about specific technologies, and I think that's true about anyone in our field. Um, but the real thing that I've learned is just how much it can do for us as a society beyond, you know, what we spend our days doing, behind a keyboard and a screen.
So where this thinking came for you, thinking beyond?
So I think for me in particular, a lot of that comes from my time as a paramedic. Um, when you're working on an ambulance, you see a lot of people um, kind of on their worst day. Their things are not necessarily going well for them, and so you learn to see and read people um, in a slightly different way. You don't just see what they're presenting to you and what their face says and what their body language says. You see what's really going on the inside, and that was something that I carried with me as I started working on a help desk. Was a lot of people who were calling the help desk, they weren't just calling because they were having a technology problem. A lot of these people could have solved their own issue, if their screen wasn't working or something, but they were otherwise having there were other things going on that made it a lot harder for them to kind of find the solution that they were dealing with. And so you begin to see that even those little technology problems weren't just a technology problem. And then I started kind of looking at that on a grander scale and on a larger scale to say, hey, what can we really do? I look at a lot of what we've seen come out of Microsoft in particular. I mentioned Satya, a lot of the work that Bill Gates continues to do. And if you listen to them and if you listen to what they're really saying, they don't spend a lot of time talking about individual technologies. They talk about what it can do as a whole. And that is something that really resonates with me. And so even though I work specifically in endpoint management, um, it's I see it as part of a much larger picture of how can we make technology work better for more people.
So what is the difference that you observe? People came with technology background and you.
That's a great question. Um, I don't know that it's just about having a technology background or not having a technology background. I think that coming from a non-typical background certainly helped me to have a different perspective. Um, there were definitely things that I had to learn. I definitely was further behind when it came to having to learn how to use different technologies. And that made me very curious. And so I had to work a lot harder to pick up a lot of that technology. Um, so if you've got a strong technology background, that certainly is a huge benefit because you don't have to spend the time learning it. Um, but at the same time, sometimes having that strong technology background kind of can be a hindrance to seeing where other people are and understanding what their real issue is. If there's one thing that I think has really set me apart, it has been being able to ask the right question to really understand what the problem is. If we take the classic help desk example, the hey, my monitor's not working, you know, uh, we've got all the common troubleshooting steps of, okay, turn on the power and is it unplugged? Um, but a lot of times, maybe the issue is there's a general power outage. Um, maybe it is something as simple as the cord's not plugged in, but maybe the monitor settings on your laptop are wrong. There's a lot of different things that it could be. And so if we just start with the simple and it kind of assume the worst, which I think a lot of people in IT have a habit of doing, is we assume that people just don't understand the technology. We don't always get to the root of the problem. So um, I don't know that there's anything about my background that specifically sets me apart, but it, like I said, it definitely has given me the ability to ask questions just slightly different to try and get to that root of the problem.
You said you have habit of looking at Bill Gates, what he's saying, what his intention is to create technology and how it is beneficial for mankind.
Yep.
So you connected with him with what his internal feeling is, other than concentrating on programming and all.
Yeah. So I think one of my favorite things that I've watched or read about Bill Gates was there was a Netflix series called Inside Bill's Brain, which is a good look at not only his life, but a lot of the work that he's continuing to do. And when you look at the way he approaches a problem, he surrounds himself with the smartest people in any given field. He looks for the people who are the best at what they do and who are really good at working with other people. If there's one thing anyone can pretty much agree with about Bill Gates, it's that he is one of the smartest people alive right now. I mean, he is uh, a relentless learner. He's always studying, he's always trying to understand the world that's going on around him. But especially if you watch that documentary, you get the sense that he never assumes that he knows or is the solution to the problem. And so I think that's the part that resonates with me, is that he is somebody who understands that the problems that we face are really a lot bigger than something that you or I can solve on our own. That there are small problems that you and I can both face and deal with. If something's not, do that and fix that. Um, but neither one of us is going to solve climate change or figure out how to feed the next generation or you know power the technology that's going to take us into the next century. We can't do that alone. And so when I look at the way he approaches those problems on a larger scale, um, even trying to make sure that we can deliver clean water to people around the globe, these are problems that are bigger than any one of us. And he takes the approach of saying that it takes a village and it takes a whole group of people to solve that issue. And I value that.
You did two different jobs, connecting with the system which has no life and trying to understand the mechanism of the computer, software, hardware, and trying to fix the problems and find the solutions for it. And also, you are communicating with different people in order to understand what their requirements are. So, understanding the internal things of the human uh, mind and the internal things of the computer. So what is the difference that you observe?
So what is the difference that I have built? I mean, I I think the best answer I can give to that question is I don't know that I have made a world shifting difference anywhere or that I've done anything that has changed the world on a grand scale by any stretch of the imagination. But every single day I have the opportunity to work with different people and hopefully share a little bit of what I have learned, and hopefully that sort of the chaos theory effect that the butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world causes a storm somewhere else. So while I don't know that I have individually made a huge difference anywhere with any of the work that I've done, I hope that it kind of causes that ripple effect that maybe somewhere else, maybe it's one of your listeners, maybe I say something that really resonates with you, maybe somebody reads one of my blog posts and gets an idea and develops a new product. That I think is kind of the greatest thing that I can hope for as a blogger and as a writer and as a speaker is that um, I can be an inspiration to someone else. I think that a lot of us have our own personal struggles and our own personal issues that we kind of work through. If you look at my earliest blog posts, I talk a lot about imposter syndrome, that whole idea or that feeling that, maybe I'm not good enough or maybe I'm not doing enough. And I hope that maybe I can help somebody else to get over those feelings themselves. If my hard work has done anything and if everything I've worked on has done anything, it's to help me realize the value of what I do. Um, and like I said, hopefully that becomes the catalyst for someone else to go do something more and make a better person of themselves because of it.
What is the biggest thing that you did?
Um, I think my answer to that question is a question. Biggest in what way?
As a consulting engineer?
So as a consulting engineer, um, I don't know that I can point to any single project or any single customer or any single moment that I would say that's the biggest thing I've done. But I would say kind of the concept of the biggest thing I've done is I've helped people to look at the problems that they're facing or the technical issues that they're facing in their specific environments and look for a solution. And I guess in a way empowered them to have the tools to be able um, to use the technology they're using to their benefit. So um,
So, what do you think that is working for you to make things possible?
I think for me the biggest thing is probably I am relentlessly curious. Um, I firmly believe that for any challenge there's always a solution. There's always a way out of it. And so I look at all of those little things as a puzzle to be solved. And just because somebody hasn't found a solution or hasn't found a way to do something doesn't mean that there's not a way. And so I think the thing that has helped me to get to where I am today is that I always want to go ahead and find the right solution, no matter what that means.
So, as a person who understands the requirements of human beings, so understanding and working on Microsoft products. So, how those products are helping and making human beings to do things easier or save time.
So for the products that I'm working on, they're largely about enterprise productivity, and a lot of it is about mobility. So when you look at specifically the mobility suite of products, Microsoft Endpoint Manager, um, Configuration Manager, um, all of that in my mind is about empowering end users to be more efficient and more effective. 20 years ago, if you look at the way we worked in IT, a lot of things were uh, a lot of things were approached from the perspective that IT needs to control everything. We need to control your desktop. We need to control your start menu. We need to control what shortcuts you have. We lock down environments, and that doesn't really work for most people. Especially if we look at people today. You know, we're on two different sides of the world, and we both grew up with technology. We both understand how to make technology work for us. So we don't need some guy down the hall in a dark room to tell us how to use a computer. And so the products that I'm working on, I think really make a difference because we're able to say to somebody, "Hey, here's the here's the product. Here's the tools we're giving you to work with. Now, please go ahead and make them your own." Um, the way I like to describe enterprise mobility, or how I see enterprise mobility, is like an infinity pool. Are you familiar with infinity swimming pools? So, you're in the swimming pool and you look out and you see the ocean and it looks like you could just swim out to anywhere. You feel like you could go across the world if you wanted to. There's no limit to what you can do, but you're still in a swimming pool. There's still a hard limit there. You can only go so far. And I kind of feel like that is what a um, good user technology experience should be like. Users should feel like they can do anything with the technology that we are giving them. They should feel like there's no limits, but we need to put in those limits to protect our organizations, the data that we're working with, and our users. And so if we do our jobs right, those protections will be there, but they'll never really see them and they'll never really get there. So I think that by helping companies to enable and empower their end users to work in a way that works best for them, that is kind of one difference that I'm able to make and that we're able to do from the perspective of endpoint management is by helping people to be more efficient. If I can help you to work from your cell phone, it's going to enable you to not be stuck at a desk all day. Or maybe it's going to help you to go watch your child's soccer game. Maybe it's going to help you to um, go spend some more time with family or travel across the world um, to see something you didn't have a chance to see. I think that is one big way that the technologies that I work on really um, do make a difference in a big way.
You mentioned a point. Technology should help a human being to solve any problem. So,
Yes.
the clients that you worked or the industries for which you worked, what is that? How is that experience working on different projects, trying to solve problems for different, completely different things which you didn't did before?
So that's a great question. I've worked with, um, even in just the last year, I've worked with a lot of different clients, ranging from, I've worked with a professional sports franchise. I've worked um, with schools. I've got a 25,000 student district that I'm working with right now. I've worked with, large manufacturers, small manufacturers. I've worked with retail. I've worked with media outlets. So I've worked with a lot of different companies, and that experience and that use of technology really differs in each one of those environments, and that's what's really interesting. When we're talking about a school, we're talking about um, giving students an educational experience that helps them to learn and gives them an environment they can explore, but then also protects them from getting out to technologies we don't want them to have. And also, to a point, I mean, kids will be kids, and we want to protect the infrastructure from kids that are exploring a little bit more than they probably should. For a lot of the manufacturing customers I have, it's about empowering their sales staff that are out on the road, that are traveling all the time, to be able to work more efficiently. Especially since the start of the pandemic, um, there are a lot more people who never come into an office or never see an office, and so giving them the opportunity to be more efficient is a big part of it. Um, with the sports team I worked with, a lot of it was about providing kiosk devices that could be used throughout the stadium and on game day. Um, and so it has really helped or it's really touched a lot of different areas. And so I think to that end, a lot of the projects I've worked with have provided technology that helps in a lot of different ways. And so that's a really good question.
You're working for one of the biggest, uh, greatest companies, technology companies in the world. So you might be understanding about the user experience from the 8 years of your technology experience. How users are interacting with tools and applications, and how well they are understanding. So it's a general question. Like if I ask Bill Gates, I'm asking the same question to you.
Yeah.
So is that possible for us as a human being, as a technologist, as a person who knows how uh, uh, the software tools are helpful for human beings? Is it possible for us to create software or hardware which is understood by all the users in the world, all the human beings in the world?
So, is it possible? I'm going to fall back to an earlier answer I gave. Yes, I think there's always a way for things to happen. Um, are we there yet where we've got technology products that are being understood by everyone in the world? No, but I think we're getting really close. And when I say that, I mean, how many billions of users does Facebook have? How many millions and billions of users have used Skype over the years, or communicate on a daily basis through products like Microsoft Teams? How many people um, understand a basic interface like simply their cable TV call box? And so, is it possible to create software platforms that are understood by everyone? Yeah, I do think it is possible. But there's a lot more to that than just creating the software. We could create a beautiful user experience, a beautiful designed piece of software, but then we also have to understand the cultural differences. We also have to understand how people communicate differently, um, and then be able to surface products that really make sense to people, um, regardless of where they are, and um, what how they were educated and what those systems look like. So yes, I absolutely think it's possible, and I think we're close. I don't think we're quite there yet, but I think we will be very soon.
How technology connected with non-technical people?
So a lot of it. So let's talk about like your cell phone. Obviously that is a piece of technology that, you know, it- obviously not the entire world has a cell phone yet, but it's probably one of the most endemic pieces of technology that we have. Something that people all around the world, cultures all around the world, are getting their hands on and starting to understand. And so I think that in a lot of ways, um, people connect to those technologies, um, by exposure to them. Just like anything else, the more time that or the more exposure there is in a culture, um, the more readily they'll be accepted. But then a lot of it is just keeping it simple. If you look at um, cell phones, we've got cell phones that are made specifically for older generations that literally are nothing but numbers and a dial button. And then we've got cell phones that can do just about anything that our desktop computers can do. So I think it's the first step is just uh, keeping things simple enough and basic enough that it kind of communicates at a base level that we all generally understand.
You said you are a curious person. You love to learn and you love to listen. You love to understand how things work. So, is there any particular experience of any client that you experienced and that you cannot forget?
I would say one of the best experiences that I've had from a pure curiosity standpoint was actually my first time working with Microsoft Intune. So I was working on the help desk at the accounting firm, um, and I had been given a promotion to a systems administrator role on our workstation engineering team. Um, they knew that they were going to be migrating the cell phone management over to Microsoft Intune, but the person who was running that project actually left the firm. They left the company, and they didn't have anyone to do it. And so they actually turned around and they asked me if I would be willing to do it. It was a brand new product. There wasn't a lot of documentation, so I had to dive into it and really understand it at a deeper level than I had to understand a lot of technology at that point in my career. Um, and so that was really my first chance to dive into something and learn something where there weren't a lot of other people who knew what I was doing or what I was working on. Um, and that, it was a fairly simple product back then, but learning it back then really set me up for where I'm at in my career today because that, after learning Intune for mobile device management, that led to me learning configuration manager and Windows device management, um, which, that led to me finding a couple more jobs. And then eventually that's grown me to where I'm at as a consultant. So I would say that's the one that always stands out to me because, at that point I was only a little bit over a year out from being a paramedic. So I didn't have a whole lot of experience. And in a lot of ways, I was actually really terrified. I was scared. I had to try and learn a technology and teach it to 3,500 people um, that I didn't know any better than anyone else did. And so I would say that's really the one that always stands out to me is having the opportunity to learn Intune that first time.
Do you think the previous job from which you habituated this sensibility, understanding, being sensible, is helping you in understanding technology better and understand technology products better?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're all a product of our environments and we're all a product of how we've gotten to wherever we are today. So we all understand the world based on where we've been. Um, so yeah, my time as a paramedic. Before that, I was a plumber. My earlier experiences with technology all helped me to look at the finer details of a problem and really understand what's going on. They taught me patience. They taught me that sometimes it's going to be a little bit harder to find the answer, and that in a way, especially from being a paramedic, it can always get worse. I mean, uh, it sounds a little bit morbid to say it, but in my day-to-day job, nobody's dying now. I have time to sit down and think about how to solve a problem. Um, as a paramedic, I had to learn how to think quickly and problem solve quickly. Um, but then it also gave me that kind of that centering force and that sort of understanding that um, the world's going to keep on turning, and it doesn't matter how bad the technology problem I'm facing today is. It's not the worst problem, and it's something that I can overcome, and I've got the time to sit back and think through. So yeah, everything that I have done up to this point has helped me with my career so far.
So that is still helping you to be a good consultant.
Absolutely, absolutely. If you look at what a paramedic does, you show up, you assess the problem, you talk to people, you learn what they're going through, you learn the symptoms, and then you start to evaluate and look for solutions. And so in a lot of ways it was a every single call on the ambulance, every single emergency we responded to was just a miniature version of consulting. Show up, evaluate the problem, and then work towards a solution. So that is probably a big part of the skills I've built today.
So consulting and engineering, there are two different words in your profession.
Yeah, and so I am ultimately an engineer who consults with other companies. So I work with systems administrators and engineers from other companies. So uh, basically, people who are doing the jobs that I used to do. So before I became a consulting engineer, I was working again as a systems administrator and an engineer, working on things like group policy and configuration manager, Microsoft Intune, and then I was able to take those experiences and become a consultant. So I am now consulting with other engineers on the same things that I used to do. Yep.
So all these experiences, how it helped you as a human being?
I think the biggest thing that it really helped me to do is to understand where people are, understand where they're at right now. I can't ask you to be anything other than who you are. And I can't expect anything of you other than you're going to show up and that you're going to be yourself. You might be having a really bad day, and I can't just ask you to stop having a bad day because I don't want you to have a bad day. So, all of these experiences have helped me to understand how to be patient and how to work with people and work with them right where they are today. If you're having a technology problem and need my help, you don't need me to come in and be condescending about you having a technology problem. It might be a simple question, I might have a simple answer, or it might be really difficult and it might take a lot of time to work through that. And so, all of these experiences help me to be a better person by helping me to just understand and accept people where they are.
So my observation, can I say, there is a logical thinker in you because of the work that you are doing, because you are into technology, you are solving the technical problems, and also with the previous experience that you had, that you understand the internal things of the body, you know the emotion. So can I say you are emotionally, logically intelligent?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So, I mean, one thing that I can say kind of to you as well is from watching some of your other videos, one thing that um, I can say about you and I actually really respect about you is that you are very curious and you're going out, you are asking the right questions. Um, it takes a lot of bravery to just message somebody on Twitter and say, "Hey, can I talk to you? I want to, I want to put a video of you on my YouTube channel." And to literally reach out to hundreds of people and ask them questions, ask them about their careers, ask them about their life experiences. I mean, that is actually really cool, and that's why I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely, I will talk to you because I can see that curiosity, and I think that is one of the most important things that you can have. Here you've got a tech channel, and we've barely talked about technology. We've talked more about the world and about people than we have about technology, and I think that is absolutely amazing. I think that's a great trait, and it's something that will serve you very well.
So what is your observation about Bill Gates when it comes to exploring technology?
So when it comes to Bill Gates, that is somebody, or he is somebody who is also uh, just extremely curious, and I think we can all learn a little bit from him when we read about him, when we look at his career. It didn't matter what was going on in the world. He was just trying to learn and trying to improve the technology he was working with during his time at Microsoft. And after leaving Microsoft, he didn't just say, okay, that's it, I'm retired. He started facing bigger and greater challenges than he ever would have faced um, just sitting as the CEO of Microsoft. And so I think if there's something we can learn from him, it's that we can all give just a little bit more. We can all continue to learn and understand because if we really want to solve the problems that the world is facing, it comes down to understanding each other. It comes down to understanding um, where we all are. If we really want to make the world work for everybody, we have to understand the problems that everyone else is facing.
What do you say to the technology leaders in the world?
I think the biggest thing that I would say to technology leaders, and this might sound overly optimistic or overly hopeful, um, the biggest thing that I would say is, you know, keep finding ways to democratize technology. Make your technology accessible to more people. Look for ways to uh, help improve the infrastructure in parts of the world that may not have it yet. To keep growing and learning in places that do have it, and find a way to use technology as a force for good and an equalizing force instead of just using technology to make a profit.
Is there any particular project on which you want to work and you want to solve problems?
You know, I'm kind of a starry-eyed dreamer. So if I were to sit back and look at all of the different things the world is facing today, I think the biggest one that always intrigues me has to do with clean energy production. Um, we just saw the work coming out of Europe last week with um, the fusion reactor that they've been testing and working on. And I am not nearly smart enough to work on that, but that is the sort of thing that I think will change the world in the second half of the 21st century and really moving into the next century. So those sorts of technology or um, technologies that help deliver clean water to different parts of the world or um, help to provide more sustainable food um, around the world. Those are the sorts of things that I really, if it were me, that I would really like to work on. The things that are going to, like I said, just make the world a better place tomorrow.
You're already doing your full-time job consulting engineering, right?
Yep.
Uh, Again, blogging, writing about something that you learned is completely a different job. It is like telling how things work. Are you able
Yeah.
to tell exactly what you understood in writing skill?
So the reason I started blogging was because of that curiosity I have, and a lot of it came down to these are the technologies that I work on a daily basis, but I don't get to dive into that technology that much in a lot of my consulting engagements because a lot of the work that we do is um, more for early deployments, so just helping companies to get started. So I don't get to spend a lot of time really diving in deep. So I want to learn that side of it and I want to learn that part. And so this is the work that I'm doing to help better myself and grow myself. And then writing it and putting it out there does a few things. One, I hope that it helps somebody else. It helps them to learn, helps them to approach a problem in a new way. But it also really helps me to kind of test myself. As when I started blogging, I had to take the time to really make sure that what I was writing was accurate and true. And so it helps me to learn and grow by being able to share those little bits that I've got out there. Um, and kind of humorously, there have been a few times when I was trying to do something and I couldn't remember how it worked, and I would Google it, and the thing that actually came up was my own blog. And one time I was like, I didn't write about that. I've never written about that. And then I read my blog, and I had written about it in the past. So um, I've helped myself with my blog as well.
And what do you say about automation and artificial intelligence?
So automation is definitely, I think, I mean, both of them, both automation and artificial intelligence are huge emerging technologies right now. And they're really going to be things that help to drive technology change moving into the latter part of this century. Automation is something that we are realizing right now. And if there is something that can be automated, I think we need to take a serious look at automating it. Artificial intelligence, I think that's a little bit behind where automation is, but at the same time, that already is providing a lot of benefits. Um, if you look at say produce companies that can now sort fruits and vegetables faster with a machine just because it's able to process information so much faster, that helps to shorten the amount of time it takes to deliver products, and that will help to um, get more fresher foods out to more people quicker. I think that's a huge bit of technology, and that's a very basic use of artificial intelligence, but it's a good early use. when you start looking at more advanced neural networks and things, I think that that is really cool, and that there's a lot that it can and will be developed there. Um, that's another one of those technologies that I really wish I had the time to spend more time in to really learn and understand more.
What is your observation about Neuralink?
Um, Mostly that I need to spend more time learning it. The depth of these technologies and the genius of the people who are working on them right now um, can truly be world changing. You know, when we start talking about automation and we start talking about how we can use technology to help the world and have technology help people, and even have technology help technology. Um, I think it's absolutely fascinating. But again, that's one of those things that I don't know enough to speak very intelligently to, other than to simply say it's fascinating. And it's one of those things that I would love to just sit down and just dive into.
You understand space technology?
Space technology, as in like outer space,
Yeah,
like
other
um,
than Earth.
yeah, um, at a very small level. I did. Um, that's something that I've only started being more and more curious about in probably the last 4 or 5 years. Um, but beyond just a real basic understanding and grasping of how big and vast. I mean, I think that's the stage that I'm at when it comes to space, is just still grasping how big everything is. So when it comes to the actual technology about rocket science and being able to um, get outside of our atmosphere, get outside of Earth, and starting to talk about warp drives and all of that. Um, I understand the theories, but I don't really understand enough to talk intelligently to it.
So one last question.
Yeah.
You communicate with people, you understand the requirements of people, and also you understand what technology can do and how it can help in solving their problems. So you are curious, you search, you learn, you see things everywhere. So what is that particular thing that you observe that need to enhance and that need to uh, 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 add more, which so that which will help more people? It can be a product or a software or any hardware, anything.
I think if there's one thing that we can do to help more people, um, I honestly don't think that it is necessarily a technology problem. I think that the real issue that we need to do to help more people is to get back to kind of what I was saying before. We need to understand people where they are at. We need to be able to uh, understand how we can take the technology we have and apply that to our everyday problems today. And so, is there any one piece of technology that I would look at that I would say would help us? No, not really. I think the one thing that would really help us is to just sit down and see each other. Um, Probably my favorite quote from any book is from the book Lilith by George MacDonald. Um, there is a line, and I'm going to slightly misquote it, I'm sure, early in the book, where the main character sees an old man off in the distance, and the old man looks like a bird. He looks like a little raven. And he walks up to him and he starts yelling from a distance, "Mr. Raven, Mr. Raven." And he realizes that this is a man he's talking to, not a bird. And he said, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I didn't. I thought you were a bird." And the old man turns around and looks at him and says, "No, you don't apologize, by allowing, um, yeah, by acknowledging my existence." Sorry, I'm completely. Uh, By calling me a raven, or rather thinking me one, you have allowed me existence, which is the sum of what one can demand of their fellow beings. And I think that's really kind of a summary of how I look at the world. We need to allow each other the space in the room to exist. And by doing that, we can understand how we can really address each other's problems. So, can I look at you and say, if you did this, it would solve all of your problems from a technology perspective? No, because I don't know you well enough, and I don't know where you are to know what specific technology could help you. So it's more about understanding that and understanding where you're at, that I can begin to understand how technology could help you. And I think that's the number one thing that we can do. If we would stop paying attention to arbitrary borders, if we would stop seeing each other as, you know, different genders and different colors and um, different nationalities, and started seeing each other for who we are and for who the sum of what makes us who we are, and stop separating ourselves, I think that by doing that, we can start to really take advantage of how or of technology. If I know the problems that you face and that the people in your town face, then I can start to help you guys utilize technology. And I think that's probably the biggest thing. We have lots of technology. We have technology that can help everybody. I'm pretty convinced of that. We just need to figure out how to use it. And we do that by talking to each other.
As a consulting engineer, as a person who solve problems of people with the technology knowledge that you have, and as a person who came from non-technical background, and also as a person who is a general observer of humanity and technology. So, what do you say about my work? I, I
So,
personally I personally did masters in software engineering
okay.
and bachelor's in computer science and engineering. So if I work in IT position in coming days with this education background and also with the work that I'm doing on our YouTube channel and podcast,
Yeah.
talking with great people like you who are already in the industry and trying to listen to the experiences of you people and how you worked, what made things possible for you, how you solve problems. With this information, how I'm going to put it in an organization and help them in growth.
So I think the one word that I would use to describe that is probably it's inspiring. Like I said, you're doing a brave thing by just reaching out to people saying, I want to talk to you. That's one of the hardest things that we as people can do is just go to somebody else and say, hey, let's talk. And so I find this inspiring. You've got the technical background, from what you're saying with a master's degree and everything. I'm sure that you can write code in circles around me. You can probably do a lot of things and you've got a lot of skills that I don't have. But the one thing that you're doing that uh, I think sets you apart, like I said, it's you're going out and you're asking questions and you're being curious and you're saying, how can I make the world a better place? What are you doing to make things different? And how can I use that myself? And so I think that's inspiring. I think that more people should take the time to do what you're doing. It's social media. It's a YouTube channel. It's a lot of people might look at it and say, but what good does that do? But you're talking to people, and I think that's literally what I just said 3 minutes ago. The most important thing we could do is talk to people, and that's exactly what you're doing. And so I think that's amazing, and I think that, like I said before, I think that's going to serve you very well in your career, and you have the potential to be able to do great things. Um, and I'm really excited to kind of see what comes out of this, and where you go in 5 years, 10 years, and 20 years. I think that's really inspiring.
So when you get time, you're already doing your full-time job. When you get time, try to write more blog posts. Whatever you learn, try to put it on the internet so that people can learn. A lot of people are not able to solve problems. If you put it out, the problem that you solved, if you put it out, that helps more people, and you can be the great contributor, and you can be the reason for a lot of errors that they are getting in their work.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And that's really what I try to do, is just try to uh, solve problems and really hopefully help people. So I will absolutely keep doing that.
So thanks, Sean, for being inspiring, for motivating, at the same time giving me opportunity to ask you a few questions, and coming to my show.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for inviting me on. I've enjoyed talking with you. Um, I look forward to seeing the video and continuing to watch more of your content.
Ca- Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your permission?
Yes, go right ahead. Yep.
Yeah. Keep doing what you love, Sean.
Yes, thank you. You too.
Yeah. Bye.